So there's a very interesting story that's trending on social media with people speculating that there's bad blood between Luka Doncic as well as Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. One of the interesting things that we knew kind of coming into this game yesterday was for both sides, but mostly for Luka, this is going to be a very, very emotional game for him. He's obviously playing the team that he spent the last 6-7 years on. He obviously, 18, 19 years old, comes into the NBA. Pretty much an instant superstar, one of the top 2 or 3 players in the NBA. And he pretty much knew that he was going to be with the Dallas Mavericks for the rest of his career. And that took a massive turn when Nico Harrison ended up shopping him. And more than actually getting rid of him and trading him, then reports started to kind of come out, right? Apparently the Mavericks thought that Luka Doncic was, overweight. He drank too much beer, which is another thing that we heard kind of leak out today. The guy's not in shape and he doesn't love the game of basketball. And now we're hearing a report that there's actually some issues between the two guys because the two guys did not speak before the game. Brian Windhorst spoke a little bit about this. I'm going to let you guys watch this video and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
The most compelling February pregame moment I've ever seen when Luka comes out to warm up an hour before the game, give or take. And Nico is sitting very plainly, in a sea of blue and gold, in a bright blue suit, sitting very leisurely on the scorer's table when Luka comes out to warm up. 15 to 20 feet apart, Luka is shooting threes from the wing at one point, maybe 30 feet. So, the arena's mostly empty. I mean, there's some fans in there, but like that to me, I thought was the beginning of amazing drama.
I assume there was no interaction pregame between Nico and Luka?
No,
okay.
No.
I just was making sure since you kind of stopped there.
Sorry. They, as far as I could tell, they never even looked at each other.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
But
Luka just saved that for the game.
Nico was there and Luka was there. And like, if either man had wanted to take it a step farther, they could have.
So there you guys have it, right? Basically, the report is that Luka Doncic, before the game, an hour before the game, was out there kind of warming up, doing his thing. And the general manager of the Mavericks is sitting 15, 20 feet away. And at no point did these two guys speak to one another. Sometimes when the general manager that trades the player, sometimes he'll go up to that player and he'll speak to that player. In this instance, that did not happen. Right? Not only did Nico not go up to Luka, Luka did not go up to Nico, vice versa. It's an interesting story nonetheless, right? Because when a player ends up getting traded, usually there's not going to be bad blood, but that's also if the player actually knows that he's going to be traded. And obviously in this instance, the report is that Luka did not know he was going to get traded. Right? Luka thought he'd spend the rest of his career with the Dallas Mavericks. And that did not end up happening. In fact, Jovan Buha actually asked Luka Doncic if he noticed Nico Harrison before or during the game around the Mavericks bench. And Luka responded saying, "I didn't see him in warm-ups." That's interesting because the question was not, did you see him in warm-ups? That was not the question. The question was, did you see him before or during the game? And the answer was, I did not see him in warm-ups, which, Brian Windhorst kind of spoke about it. In the warm-ups part of this, there weren't a lot of people there, right? Like it was fairly empty at that point, and there's just no way, at least in my opinion, there's just no way you don't know that Nico Harrison is there, and there's no way someone didn't tell you before you went out there that, hey, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks is there. Now, of course, some people have been talking about this, and they're going to make this into a much bigger deal than it is. And I think we're at the point where it's really a non-story at this point for me, because at the end of the day, Luka might feel like, hey, he got wronged by the Dallas Mavericks. There were other reports that he had some laughing moments with Mark Cuban as well, which, and Mark Cuban's not, 100% owner of the Mavericks anymore either. But I don't know, it's just an interesting situation altogether. And then there's reports now, right? There's reports that apparently Luka Doncic's diet, his habits likely led to this trade. It was Sam Amick of The Athletic that kind of put some of this information out there. The report says that some within the Mavs organization felt Doncic was lazy and they had concerns about the path he was on physically. Doncic's weight was reportedly a frequent frustration within the organization, as was his ability or affinity for drinking beer and smoking hookah. Now, that's interesting, right? It's definitely interesting. And I'll be the first to tell you guys, Luka looks a lot healthier today than he did 3 weeks ago, right? And I'm not sure exactly if what that was. Maybe it was also because Luka did have an injury, and for the couple weeks prior to the trade, he wasn't actually out there practicing and playing, and that could have also led to maybe he wasn't exercising, or he wasn't in that mode of like, hey, I need to be 100% good to go. Maybe he was rehabbing. But he does look a lot healthier right now, and we're starting to see flashes from Luka, right? Like when you guys look at some of these stats with Luka, and I know yesterday against the Mavericks, it wasn't great, right? Like the stats weren't great for Luka. He was 35% from the field goal percentage, 6 of 17, 1 of 7 from 3-point lines, and you would have ideally liked to see him knock down maybe 3 or 4 more shots, maybe get closer to 30 points. But the Lakers still won, and I'd argue they didn't have that good of a game, right? Like, LeBron had a phenomenal game, right? But Luka struggled a little bit. We had a couple other guys, Rui Hachimura, I think could have done a little bit better on the offensive side as well. He did have a couple of nice plays as the game was kind of, in that clutch part of that game, probably like last 5-6 minutes of the game. He had one play where he was able to score. I think it might have been a fast break opportunity, which helped the Lakers obviously kind of start to pull away. And then LeBron kind of did his thing, right? 16 points in the fourth quarter. Luka, not great on the offensive side. A couple other guys, not great. But the Lakers still won, right? And they still won, and they got it done when it mattered most. And then don't overlook the fact that Luka had 15 rebounds, 12 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. And he only had 2 turnovers, right? 12 turnovers for Luka in his first 3 games with the Lakers, and only 3 turnovers in the last 2 games with the Lakers, right? And that's a massive difference, right? There's so many more opportunities for the Lakers in the game against the second game against the Jazz, the first game against the Hornets. 11 total turnovers, and both of those games were losses. A lot less turnovers. The last 2 games, both games were wins, right? So I think for the Lakers, it's very important to continue to roll forward with Luka. Give him, run the offense through him, kind of let him do his thing out there. At the end of the day, the Lakers got this win, right? And LeBron James talked a little bit about it after the game, that they wanted to get this win for Luka, right? They wanted to make sure that they got this win, because although Luka might not actually say anything, LeBron knows that Luka wanted to get that win, right? And the Lakers obviously were able to kind of pull out and get that win. Now, I do want to switch focus, right? I don't think the bad blood between Luka and Nico is really a big deal. It exists. I would acknowledge that, but it's really not a big deal. But I do want to talk a little bit about the trade and kind of how it came together. And I know, the trade has been something that a lot of people have spoken about. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it is interesting nonetheless, because Jeanie did confirm some of what I think some of us knew, but it wasn't officially confirmed. And for the president of the Los Angeles Lakers to put it out there, it basically confirms it.
I can't believe Luka Doncic is a Los Angeles Laker. When you look and see him in your Lakers 77, what are you thinking when you see that?
When in my position, when you see certain players in the league and you think, there's no way I'll ever have that player on my team. Like it's just impossible unless you draft a star like that. Mm-hmm. They usually don't move. And, when the opportunity came up, we were not looking to move Anthony Davis. He was he was our rock solid player. And so we had to give up a lot to get Luka, but the opportunity to get him
arrive. When did it finally first land on your radar screen that Luka was a possibility even in your world? The conversation started a couple weeks before the trade was executed. And what was really important was Rob Pelinka, the general manager, and I, we did not want any part of it to leak out, because it's very disruptive to a team that's trying to focus on getting better. We have a rookie coach in JJ Redick, and the idea of blowing something up mid-season to make a trade like that, if it didn't go through, would have repercussions. So it was really tight-lipped, and each step of the way was discussed, and we were able to make a deal that both sides were comfortable with. Well,
you have to remember, we had the piece that they wanted, which was Anthony Davis. And so, that's why
they came, that's why the conversation started, because they wanted Anthony.
So there you guys have it, right? Jeanie Buss is basically saying that stars like Luka Doncic just don't become available all that often, right? And it wasn't them that reached out to the Mavericks saying, hey, we want Luka. It was them reaching out to the Lakers, right? They basically said, Anthony Davis is the piece that we want, right? And the interesting thing is, so many other people are saying, hey, it was a bad trade for the Mavericks. Why would you not try to get, an equal value to what you kind of have in Luka? You get a guy that's, 6-7 years older, a guy who, and don't get me wrong, Anthony Davis is a great basketball player, but it's a guy in 2-3 years is going to start to trend downwards. As opposed to Luka's in his prime, and he's probably only going to get better over the next 2 to 3 years. Why would you make that type of trade? And I think people overlook it a little bit, but Jeanie Buss puts it out there, right? She's saying that we had the piece that the Mavericks wanted, right? The Mavericks obviously feel like, hey, we have Kyrie Irving, we have Klay Thompson, we have guys that are, kind of aging, right? Or they're at least, a couple years in their careers left at the kind of level that they're at right now. We can add another guy at that similar level in Anthony Davis, and we can try to win a championship. And truth be told, the Mavericks will be a championship contender probably within the next 2 or 3 years. I think there's a chance they end up actually winning a championship in the next 2 to 3 years if they're able to kind of keep that core together. Max Christie has also looked pretty good, although he struggled yesterday against the Lakers. He's also looked kind of good. I think he's like 22. So he's going to develop a lot over the next year or two, right? So that's another piece kind of for the Mavericks. And I think this trade just made sense all around. I don't think it's as bad as some people were initially saying. Yes, Luka Doncic, top 2 or 3 player. You don't move those type of players unless the player themselves wants, off that team. In this case, Luka did not. But Jeanie Buss basically broke it down. The Mavericks approached the Lakers, not the other way around. We never felt that we were going to move Anthony Davis. We thought when LeBron kind of retires, Anthony Davis will be the future, right? He's the guy that's going to sell those tickets. He's the guy that's going to bring in fans. And that was our thinking behind it until the Mavericks essentially approached the Lakers. Another thing she said is that Rob Pelinka and I, we did not want any of this to leak out because the trade conversations had started a couple weeks prior to this, which that's interesting in its own right? Because I would expect the Mavericks to pick up the phone, call the Lakers, talk about a potential trade, but more than that, you would think that they would talk and then it's kind of over at that point. But because they started talks a couple weeks before, I almost wonder if the Dallas Mavericks did not reach out to any other team, right? Because to call a team in 3 weeks before the actual trade happened, I find it interesting that in those 3 weeks, when you're basically already committed to trading Luka, that you wouldn't have at least called another team or two, right? Because there's other pieces you might be able to bring in if you're the Mavericks to potentially win now, right? I find it interesting however you kind of look at it. We'll see what ends up happening. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Obviously wanted to bring you guys those 2 updates. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed the content that I'm obviously putting out on this channel. Sean and I should be going live here at some point soon. I'm going to reach out to him right after this and see if we can go live. He had mentioned he was not feeling good. His throat's out, right? I don't have my voice right now. So we'll see what ends up happening. Lakers obviously play tomorrow night. Let me know what you guys think, man. Comment down below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.